Well, good afternoon from Bangkok's Suvarnabhumi airport. Just before heading back home to Vancouver on Singapore Airlines, I'm getting in a couple laps at the Happy Healthy bike lane. If you've ever flown into BKK before, you might have seen this cycling track. It circles the entire airport perimeter for a total of 23 kilometers. Definitely a bucket list visit if you're an avid cyclist. Even though I had a great time there, I bit off more time than I'd like there, showing up at the terminal 90 minutes prior to departure time. Normally I'm not too bothered by this, but I put my baggage in storage, so I had to get that picked up first. The check-in desk wasn't too busy, and there was no wait in the business class lineup. I received my boarding pass, and I was pleasantly surprised to see that boarding was 30 minutes prior to departure time, even for a 787-10. The route between Bangkok and Singapore is one of the busiest international routes in the world. Not top 10, but it's definitely up there. It only makes sense for Singapore Airlines and Thai Airways to have multiple flights a day, all on wide bodies. Even Cathay Pacific is dipping their toes back into the route. But regardless of that, it would only make sense for Singapore Airlines to have a lounge here. The third floor is where all the airline lounges are located. The only downside is the missing apron views, but I can live with that. The SilverKris Lounge here is fantastic, with tons of seating, full service bar with self-pouring beer, not to mention all the food options available. The buffet here has tons of Thai, Singaporean, and Western options. Unfortunately, I was dealing with a bit of a stomach bug during the time of filming this. Regardless of what I could stomach, it all tasted great. If you thought by now, hey, I thought Singapore Airlines stopped flying to Vancouver. Well, shocker, I'm not flying there directly from Singapore. For much needed context, I am taking the 787-10 here in Bangkok to Singapore, with a 9.5 hour overnight layover. Then I'm hopping back on my first A380 since the pandemic, all the way to London. The gates here are all pigpen style, so give yourself a little bit of extra time just to get to the gate. I love this iconic terminal design here, but it makes for some pretty terrible aircraft shots. Anyways, here's my ride down to Singapore, this brand new 6-month-old 787-10 Dreamliner. Singapore Airlines introduced these guys into the fleet for their quote-unquote regional flights. I guess this only makes sense for where Singapore is geographically located, but it's very different than what I'm used to for regional flights back in Canada. Boarding began 30 minutes right on the dot. Unlike many times flying within Thailand, the boarding was very organized. Hello. This aircraft is equipped with 36 seats in business and 301 in economy. This seat looks absolutely amazing, but already a major downside. Look, I'm a pretty small guy, but I can barely squeeze into this seat. The window seats alternate between one closer to the window and the aisle. Row 12 and the odd number seats that go higher are the ones closest to the window. We start the seat tour with a storage cubby where you'll find a pair of noise cancelling headphones and the menu. A unique feature is this vanity mirror. Sorry, hold on 1 second. Sorry about that. Carrying on, we got 2 USB-A and a universal power outlet. That is also in the cubby as well. There's also an NFC reader, but I'm not too sure what's going on with that. The headphone storage hook is a nice touch, along with an actual coat hook. Below is the literature storage. This contains my magazine, Wi-Fi instructions, air sickness bag, and a safety card. Underneath, there's a shoe storage bin, but I couldn't seem to open it. The open space under the footwell was good enough. People tend to complain about the footwell alignment on Singapore Airlines, but if you shift your whole body to align with it, it's perfectly straight now. Go figure. This seat alignment isn't as bad as their other aircraft, but it's still very spacious. The tray table is nice and sturdy, along with a wood finish. This beautiful 4K IFE screen tilts forward, for when the seat's in bed mode. Another major downside to this seat is this wing. It holds the reading lamp, but partially blocks out one of the windows. You can scoot forward for a full view, but is somewhat uncomfortable. The 3-direction reading lamp is useful and complements the nice padding and design of this whole seat. Not that you'll really need it, but the headrest also has adjustable wings. On either side is the armrest. This also adds a few inches to the width of the bed. Last but not least, you'll find a Panasonic touchscreen remote along with the seat controls. This flight isn't very long, but you'll still find a good pillow and blanket waiting at every seat. The IFE was stocked with tons of new movies, shows, live TV, and audio. I always appreciate a great selection, but the UI was a little annoying to navigate after a while. Talk about first world problems. Hey, speaking of first world problems, I normally don't care if airlines include air nozzles or not, but I was definitely feeling the warmth tonight inside the cabin. Adding to that, no pre-departure drinks were served. I know this is a minor inconvenience and probably not as standard, as I was served a pre-departure drink on my next flight. We ended up pushing off the gate 10 minutes late, so I'm not sure if that's why drinks weren't handed out.
There are several. When you hear the command, brace, brace, assume the brace position.
Nature called right as the plane started to take off, so a lab tour would make sense. Even though this aircraft doesn't travel very far, The stool to get changed is an excellent feature. Instead of Singapore Airlines offering amenity kits, amenities are stocked in the lavatories. This includes dental kits, shaving kits, and hairbrushes. There are also little hand towels, which is a first. And on the bottom we got cologne, moisturizers, and hand sanitizer. There is also cups for water, but hey, don't drink this stuff. Wi-Fi is free for all business class passengers on Singapore Airlines, and is decently fast for in-flight Wi-Fi. Good for surfing, but not that great for streaming. The noise cancelling headphones weren't that bad, and had a decent quality, plus okay noise cancelling, but I normally opt to use my own Bose QC20s. The entree tonight was this braised beef cheeks with gnocchi. This was all served on one tray, which I'm fine with on a flight of this length. But this just tasted okay and it was somewhat tough. But the real highlight was the Singapore sling, the perfect sweet and sour complement. I kind of prefer this, but hot towels were handed out after the meal service. Wet wipes were handed out before. I also managed to get a 30-minute snooze in. The footwell has tons of space along with the overall bed length. I could easily spend 10 plus hours on this plane. So to summarize everything here, I had a positive experience, but I'm not too sure if this lives up to the standard I was expecting from Singapore Airlines. I'm not too sure if this flight was catered in Bangkok or double catered in Singapore. Typically the outstations, Bangkok in this case, don't have good catering the airline sets standards for. So the airlines will double cater for an out and back flight. But on the flip side, the staff are amazing from start to finish, and it was a true pleasure to have them. I flew with Cathay Pacific in business class for the first time around the same time last year, and I had my mind blown. I was expecting the same feeling from Singapore Airlines, but that same spark wasn't there. Maybe because I was dealing with a stomach bug or was just really tired. But don't get the impression that I'm ungrateful to be flying on one of the best airlines in the world, in business class. I still had a good flight overall. But I can't wait to see what they offer on the A380 to London. So stick around to check that video. Thanks again for taking the time to watch this. If you feel like it, feel free to drop a like and subscribe. Cheers, and I'll see you in the next one.